Hello friends, this is Mark from the Human-Cetacean Alliance, here to talk to you today about very good news regarding cetaceans and their relationship with humans. And that very good news is that the Icelandic parliament has just decided to ban whale hunt in its territorial waters, because up to now Iceland had kept a whaling industry going on, even though over the years there was more and more opposition from Icelanders to that activity, and argument that it would be much more suitable to convert whaling into whale watching activity, which is very profitable from a touristic perspective. So Iceland, of course, was one of the very rare few countries remaining that allow that activity to take place. So this is a really important breakthrough. Now, as you probably know, we've had an absolutely horrible period in terms of whale killing on an industrial scale during the 19th and 20th century. And thanks to the opening of human hearts and the awakening of human consciousness, a stop has been put to that, with a few rare exceptions. And in fact, there is an international body that decides on these issues and that decides what quota of cetaceans can be hunted every year. And we know who these countries are. It's primarily Japan. You know, Japan has the lion's share. And the reason why that whaling commission is still allowing for quotas is that they know that if they didn't, these countries would just leave and do whatever they want. But the reason why I wanted to talk about that ban by Iceland, and there will be others, of course, this is going to end. That practice is going to end soon, as there is just too much understanding and too much love for cetaceans now for that sort of barbarity to be perpetuated. Because of course there is still opposition in Iceland itself. There is a lobby. Where there is a parliament, there are lobbies. So there is a whaling lobby, a lobby of whale hunters. And their main argument is tradition. Yeah, it's the easiest argument. In that sort of situation, it's our national tradition. So, yeah, we cannot deprive these families from their traditional living and traditional activity. Well, it's a bit brutal, you know, if you don't offer these people a possibility to convert to other activities. By the way, that's exactly what they've done in the island of Madeira, where I hold my cetacean retreat, spiritual cetacean-centered retreat twice a year. There was once really important whaling activity in Madeira. And now Madeira has become primarily a touristic island, and there's a lot of whale watching and dolphin watching going on there. And they use something that was very common during the whaling era, which is that they have spotters on the hills with very powerful binoculars watching the ocean, and as soon as they spot cetacean activity, they radio the whale watching businesses on the ground or at sea and tell them, well, at sea primarily, and tell them, go to these coordinates. Go to these coordinates. There's a whale, there are pilot whales, there are sperm whales, there are dolphins, whatever. So they kept some part of the heritage, the legacy of these whaling activities in the framework of their much more, how shall I put it, life-enhancing, reconverted activity, which fills people with wonderment and happiness and joy. So that's exactly what can be done in Iceland as well. But this is really very encouraging in terms of evolution for humanity, because, of course, protecting cetaceans from being slaughtered is a very important step in the right direction. Now, the step that comes after that is to actively develop our relationship and cooperation and partnership with them, because there is a lot that we can achieve together with this highly conscious species and advanced culture, and that is what they're waiting for. That's exactly what they're waiting for. And in order to achieve that, of course, we must learn to consciously communicate with them. Now, there is something else that I want to draw attention on, because that subject is very important, very important. And it is the subject of controls. What do I call controls? Controls are multidimensional infrastructures that are designed to keep people, to keep us under control for specific purposes. So I'm talking interdimensional stuff here, interdimensional infrastructure. And if I take the example of whaling, and especially certain types of whaling, like what is taking place in the Faroe Islands. The Faroe Islands are a tiny set of islands that belong to Denmark, where there is again a traditional activity of brutally, cruelly slaughtering pilot whales with an incredible level of barbarity. And I'm not going to describe it to you, because I find it just too disgusting to describe it. And if you're sensitive, I really don't recommend that you try to watch pictures, let alone videos. But my point is, it is not natural for human beings to behave like that. No human being in its right state, in its natural state, is going to perpetrate that kind of action, to act with such cruelty. And of course, the history of humanity is full of acts of unbelievable cruelty. But that is my point. My point is that this is absolutely not natural. It is not part of human nature, because human nature is to be humane. See, our languages have been manipulated in many ways, but there is still a lot of truth to be found in these languages regardless. And in this case, definitely, human and humane, this is very telling. This is telling a truth. This is telling a truth that is extremely important, because many people are disgusted and despair about what they believe is human nature, and the horrors that they associate with it. Now, there are lots of horrors, but they are not part of human nature, absolutely not. So you have here, it's important to understand the phenomenon of possession. Now, that is something Westerners really don't want to hear about nowadays, except some people who are still very religious. Not that I find that very helpful either. But that very real phenomenon that most other cultures understand quite well, Westerners just poo-poo as superstition. So, because we humans have been in a weakened state for a long time, and have been dealing with an extremely messy situation, spiritually speaking, and in terms of multidimensionality, it's been extremely messy since the last great cataclysm. We've been having a lot of that going on. A lot of possession by really unsavory entities. Demons are very real, and there are other types of entities as well that can drive people insane, especially in traumatic situations, traumatic, very high stress situations. They can drive people absolutely nuts. But other than direct possession, so when an entity infiltrates your energy fields and take control of your subtle bodies, or some of your subtle bodies, there is the other phenomenon of the controls. So controls are much more complex. They are much more complex, and they don't target individuals, even though there is also collective possession, of course, but they target collectives. They target collectives to make large groups of people behave in a certain way, and for a whole variety of purposes. So in order to do that, they are being plugged into energy sources. And these energy sources, they either belong to the planet or they are us. They can be animals too. So and even trees. So they plug into energy sources. Can be, as I said, it can be our energy, which means that these controls can be plugged into us. And they use that energy. They use that energy to exert their influence. So I'm not going into detail with this because it's a very complex subject. It's not that complex. The way they function, if I was to describe the details of it, is complex. But the core information itself is quite clear to understand. It's that these vast interdimensional controls, these infrastructures, pump our energies and use them to our detriment. To our detriment, to exert mind control and empower activities that are really not only detrimental to humanity, but that go absolutely against human nature. You couldn't have war without these controls. You definitely couldn't have systemic protection for people who, I have to select my words carefully here because I don't want that video to be censored. People who behave in certain ways towards children. These people clearly have benefited from systemic protections. To make that possible, to make such an outrageously, absurdly disgusting thing possible, you need to have a control in place. It's not possible otherwise. And in the case of the last remnants, the last vestiges of whaling, it's the same. It's the same. So you could say, but yeah, there's a strong cultural aspect in it. In Japan, for instance, where the mindset is evolving, by the way, quite significantly on this subject. So in Japan, it's cultural. Eating whale meat is cultural. It's culturally ingrained. Yes, but how did it become that way? And why is it that it takes so much time, that it's been taking so much time to change? Because Japanese cultural identity, it's true, is very strong. It's very, very strong. But at the same time, they're quite aware of the rest of the world. And they know a lot. They have a very keen interest into Western culture. They've had that since the late 19th century. So they're not provincial people. They have a very strong sense of their own identity, but they're not provincial. They're not. They don't live on a. They definitely don't live on a desert island. So I contend that the reason why it's taking so much time is because there's a control. Now the good news is, once you know that these controls exist, you can dismantle them. And I've dismantled quite a few. Thanks to not just me. I did that with a little team, and we were led in that effort by a lady who was very, very aware of these controls and what they're made of, and who was accessing very clear guidance about which control we were supposed to go after. So now I feel it's time to go after the whaling control. And that sort of activity is what we can do in my classes, such as the Human-Cetacean Lions online course that will start in a few weeks from now. Somewhere, well, you'll see the dates in the description of the video. It's going to start in July. So because of the time at which I'm recording this, it will be July of 2026. Because we work with cetaceans in direct partnership with them during these classes, they would participate in that effort, of course. So you could think, well, why don't they do it by themselves? If they're so, if they're so conscious and whatever. Well, we humans have our role to play, and our role is absolutely key, because we currently are the paramount species on this planet, and we are the only species that is fully fractal in its design, fully microcosmic. So we can access a lot of power, and we have a particular responsibility. So cetaceans have a very, very big responsibility as well. But ours, nobody else can fulfill that responsibility on our behalf. So we have to be part of it. So that is something that you can be a part of if you want to participate in that kind of activity. And I'm also going to announce soon the launch of a free community that will be focusing on the human-cetacean relationship and everything, all kinds of spiritual information focusing on cetaceans, dolphins, whales, porpoises, sperm whales, belugas, orcas, narwhals, all these wonderful guys, pilot whales. So all kinds of information about them, about their spiritual life, about our relationship with them, their place in the grand scheme of things, what's going on for them at the moment, news like the Icelandic ban. So all of that will be discussed and shared in the framework of that online community. So yeah, stay tuned, that's going to be launched and announced soon. Well, that's it for today. 23 minutes. I cannot do short. I can if I really discipline myself, but it's not my natural inclination. It's not my natural slant. That's the word I was looking for. It's not my natural slant. Anyway, all the best for you guys. Have a great time. Take care. See you soon. Bye bye.